Hey, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to Behind the Veil, a show that provides insight into the world of weddings. Today, we're going to be talking about mental health because let's just face it, it's something that continuously comes up into our lives. And if you're a bride, obviously, you're dealing with people that have your whole life to install buttons and they're pressing them on that day. And if you're a vendor, oh my God, you have to become all things to all people. But to help me discuss this, let me bring on Marcy Gutenberg with an affair to remember my Marcy, my co-host. Hi, Marcy.
Hello. How is everybody
Yay.
today? Yay.
I know. So we have
Excited.
Tania on, Dr. Tanya's, and
Yes.
Paredes, Dr. Paredes. And she, by the way, and we talked about this right before, is that she is our most often guest. How do you put that?
She is the guest that we've had most often.
Most often. Oh my goodness. And that just kind of tells you how important mental health is in the community at large.
Yes. I mean, this year is first of all, I cannot believe that this weekend, and we're going to bring her on in just a moment, but I just want to say, I cannot believe that we are already approaching the second weekend of September.
Isn't that crazy?
And if you think about it, all these couples who are getting married right around now,
right?
I mean, your day approaches very quickly. And so there's a lot of emotions and so forth that are going on. So I think this is a perfect opportunity to bring on Dr. Paredes.
Well, talking about, let's bring her on. Doctor, how are you?
Hi, guys.
Hi,
how
Dr.
are
Paredes.
You? Hi,
Marcy. We're so excited to have you. Like I said, you how random that you are our most often guest. I'm saying that badly. I don't know why.
I am the repeat offender. I am the most repetitive offender. Maybe is that better?
Right, but I mean, but
repetitive guest.
Yeah, but I think that's because mental health has been such a big part of what we have gone through the last 3 years.
Yes.
Because not only were we worried about our business folding, then it was, what do we do about building our marriages and our wedding ceremonies? Then it was about like family issues. I mean, it just like boom, boom, boom. It just like, I feel like the virus is like, knock them out, knock them out, knock them out.
Yeah. It's
constantly getting back up.
Listen, Marcy said, I can't believe we're in the second weekend of September. Thanks for telling me, Marcy, because now I'm like, oh my God, that's true. it didn't process, what I
didn't either until today. It just hit me.
Yeah. And number two, I think you're right. I think people are like, oh my God, like 2022 kind of like skated past everybody. I feel like it kind of went fast. And I really do think it's likely because of like, people were so concentrated with COVID, obviously in 2020 and still in 2021, that now I think people are like, oh, it's not such an immediate. If you are vaccinated, there's so many layers of protection now, right? The updated booster just came out, so there's a further layer of protection. So I feel like we're probably at the tail end of people being very scared about it. And I think we're now in okay, so how do we come out? And that's obviously going to impact how you plan events, how you plan bridal showers, who do you invite? Do we make it a big thing? But wait a minute, now we have this health thing that's still the thing. Right. Should we account for that? And that implies you guys, right? Because you guys have to figure out how to manage that anxiety, and because it's going to come up as that.
Well, and the thing is that there are people still very, very worried about it. I mean, it was funny. I was having a conversation with my mom yesterday, randomly, and she said, there are still a lot of people dying from this virus, and yet the news is saying, it's okay, get your, But if you're like in the real world, and you're looking at that and you're thinking, oh my God, I have to make a decision about whether or not I'm going to be able to go to this wedding, or do I protect myself to be at home? And that's a life or death situation.
Well, and listen, if you have a wedding where culture is a big piece of the wedding, if folks are, have an ethnic background that they want to incorporate, they're probably going to want to have grandparents, abuelos, this business. And so organically, you're going to have to figure out, well, so I want my grandmother who's 98 years old to be there, but I'm also going to be in an enclosed place. So how do I protect her? Like that conversation, I don't think existed, even for something like the flu season, which can be very dangerous to older people. But I think you're right. I think that the news probably has gotten so fatigued over talking about COVID deaths that I don't know that it's, there's so much other stuff happening that it's all horrific. It's almost like we need to decide are we going to keep talking about, there are things now to insulate people. Again, vaccines, masks, there's a lot of protocols. And I've seen a lot of events where it's masked people can sit in the back or masked people can sit on this side, unmasked people on that side. And I think those kinds of parameters, people need to think about them if they want to have a section for older people or people that want to wear a mask. And these are probably conversations that you guys didn't really need to have with people before that you're now starting to have as well. Yeah.
So has something changed? I mean, obviously we know everything has changed.
Sure.
But as far as the people that are coming to talk to you, has that changed? Has it become better, more accepted, quote unquote, to come and talk to a psychologist, a social worker, etc.?
Yeah, so that's a good question. The way that I would explain this out to someone who wasn't in my field is that the anxieties and the concentrations are different. So I think before in 2020, everyone was scared of COVID. Nobody wanted to get it. We were all scared of the same monster. Some of us have been bitten by the monster. Others of us have not been bitten by the monster. Other people don't want to even see the monster, go near the monster. I don't want to be bitten, right? It's like different versions of what you're willing to deal with. So I think a lot of people have fatigue over protecting other people, honestly. And I think a lot of the people that are coming down, my road are, I'm still being very COVID cautious. I want to have a baby shower. I've had a baby in the pandemic. That was a group that was super insulated and isolated.
But I'm tired of protecting you.
And I'm tired of protecting your mother-in-law. If your mother-in-law walks around without a mask, when she's going to come and infect my baby, or my wedding, I need to protect my abuela who's coming from wherever, and we're taking all these COVID precautions, and your mom and sister, they don't care, and they're going to stand next to her. I think that's what's happening. I joke that the amount of couples counseling I've done in the last 2.5 years rivals the whole 22 that I've even been practicing. So
my God, that's a great question. Has that increased, the couple counseling, and is it more so before the wedding versus after?
So to me, in terms of weddings and sort of values, to me, this is a normal conversation that couples should have. So I assume, guys, by the time couples get to you, there should have been a conversation of budget. What kind of wedding do we want? Big, little, indoors, outdoor, all of that stuff. So, So the simple fact that sometimes there is not that conversation, there likely isn't the conversation that I want people to have, which is like, where are our values as it relates to keeping people safe? Where do we land on keeping people safe? Are you okay with having a masked section? And some people don't want to get married if it's going to be like, if anyone's going to be masked in the picture, they just don't want to do it. That's fine. That's fine. And then there are people that are like, I don't care if people are masked. This is our reality. And this is part of our story. And I think that's lovely, right? For people to kind of embrace, when we look back at our pictures, this is the reality of what was happening in our lives, right? It's kind of like anything that happens in the world, right? It becomes a part of your narrative. But when two people that are opposite get together and you disagree on something like, where do we want to get married, indoors or outdoors? If you dig a little deeper, a lot of times there's like health insecurities around that. Like, well, I really want to have it outdoors in December because it'll be cool and we'll be outdoors. So I won't be so paranoid that like my mother's going to get sick or I'm going to get sick or someone in my wedding party is going to get sick. I had a bride not that long ago whose wedding was basically a super spreader event. She probably, they were about 40 or 50 that were infected. And when I asked her, I go, so did you guys have a conversation about like, she's like, well, we talked about custom masks that were part of favors. And I go, that's all great. But they never went through with it because they just didn't account for it. And this was a couple months ago when things were still pretty high. I mean, in the summer, things were still pretty high. The positivity rate, I just looked it up yesterday, is 15.6%. That's not bad. Okay.
I love that you said that's not bad. I'm like, compared 15% is a lot.
Compared to 27.5 in June.
Wow.
It is much lower. Okay. Much lower. I want to remind you that schools were closed at 10%.
Crazy.
Oh, wow.
Okay. So schools were closed at 10%. So in terms of scope, because there are so many things to protect us now. Like kids can wear masks to school. It's optional. You totally can. People can vaccinate their children 6 months and up. I mean, so there are protections out there, just like the flu, just like any viral infection.
Right.
But I think people got so, I mean, we went from freedom to strict lockdown. And I think you put people in a box long enough, they just don't want to make concessions. But I think large events, I mean, I think if you have older people, people with young children, I mean, I think it would behoove couples to talk to your planner about how to handle that. Marcy, I even had a friend of mine tell me she set out 2 sets of invitations, one that said mask optional and one that said mask mandatory, and like different time entries, like you come at this time and then the mask people come later to let the others get there. I mean, which it didn't even dawn on me that was a thing, but it worked for her.
I haven't seen that. I've actually done 2 sets of invitations, one where they invite everybody, and then the other one is for the people that have a choice of either coming or having virtual.
Oh, that's even smarter. Yeah. And see, so to me, that's like, what's going to work for our event? I think that's the conversation that I would encourage planners and really anyone to have with their couples, because it's going to come up. Someone's going to get positive. It's going to come up. And then you decide, okay, well, my dad is positive. He needs to walk me down the aisle. So do I say something? Do I mask him? What do I cancel the whole event? So I think couples still have a little bit of a challenge there that they have to deal with.
So what about the guilt factor? I mean, imagine that you're the producer of a big social event, thousands of people, that come together, for a concert series or a food and wine series or something like that.
Or a conference.
Right. But I mean, where do you kind of like pause your brain to say, I'm providing an event. People are adults. They know whether or not to come or not. We're providing, sanitation stations. We've done what we're supposed to do.
Yeah.
Should me as a planner be worried about that mentally? Because sometimes I find myself going, oh God, should I not do this? I mean, it's my livelihood, for freak's sake. I mean, how am I not to continue to make money?
Yeah.
And if I don't do it, somebody else is going to.
100%. And so you need to take care of your conscience. If you're not sleeping at night and you can't handle the possibility of that, and it's greater than the actual event, then I think you need to consider, is there something else that I can do to provide further safety? But ultimately, Keith, you're right. People, we are all grown ass adults. We need to be able to take care of ourselves. If we walk, the only way for you to circumvent that is for the bride and or the couple to say masks are not optional. They are fully mandatory. Everyone must wear them. And then if something happens, you've literally done, and there are people that
everything possible.
Everything. Yeah. And there's people that are doing like vaccine only events. I just went to a birthday party. You had to show your vaccine card, and we're all friends. We all know, I mean, like, we're all vaccinated, right? So we all knew who got the booster, who had the antibodies, and they gave out wristbands of, do you want red if people stayed away, green if you were allowed to hug and kiss hello, yellow was a fist bump. And I was like, this is genius.
But about that. I know, but there's a part of my brain that goes back to, that series that everybody understands, where the lady's walking down and everybody's saying, shame, shame, shame. I mean, there is a part of my brain that thinks about somebody that's not vaccinated, that doesn't go with the general science of the world.
Yeah.
And how separate do they now feel to everybody else? Because there's a mental issue there that happens.
For sure.
I
mean, it's challenging, right? Because couples and bride and or grooms and family of the bride and family of the groom may have family members that can't be vaccinated, choose them to be vaccinated.
Right.
Yeah.
And so what do you do with that? Because you want them to be a part of the event. You also don't want them to be, people screaming at them and saying, how dare you not be vaccinated?
Yeah, right.
I mean, because there is that reality out there that some people just can't be vaccinated or don't believe in it. And where do we get? So where's the balance? Where's the balance as far as like, I appreciate your opinion. I am going to, I'm not approving of it, but I'm in I don't know, oh God, I'm missing that word, but
Compromise.
Yeah.
So this is a good question. I've had this come up with a lot of events, probably within the last 6 months, much to your point. Like at this point, you're either vaccinated. At this point, it's not that we cannot get the vaccine. Either you are or you are not, right? That's right. Those are the camps. Or you cannot, and you can't for medical reasons, which there are a large, there's a decent amount of people that physically cannot get the vaccine, right? My answer is the following. If I'm going to Susan's wedding and Max's wedding, and I want to be there, I need to adhere to what Susan and Max have decided for it's not my event. My opinion there is really quite minimal. And if Susan and Max ask me, can you please wear a mask? And if you do not want to wear a mask, there are 3 pews to the back that we have reserved. And I love and respect Susan and Max. I'm sitting in the back pews. Ultimately, it's not my event. If I don't care if people are masked or not as a guest, I need to decide if I want to take that risk. So I think you both would agree with this, that I think a lot of guests forget what our purpose at a wedding is, and that's to support the bride and the groom. Right? It's not on me to impose, like, who cares about my belief system? It's not my wedding. I should shut up.
Exactly.
Right. It just doesn't matter, right? So if I'm going consensually to an event where I know the question of mask is not being asked, the question of vaccine, then as a grown person who has eyes and ears and a brain, I need to question, am I okay with this? It is not, I shouldn't put it on the bride or the groom. Like, how dare people brides and groom with an already stressful situation? Okay.
Right. Yeah. Oh, I love that. How dare you?
That. That's perfect. First of all, I have to say that, I think people overall, especially in this current days that we live in, I think people forget about being respectful to one another. Sure. And when you're not the host, you have to understand that somebody is spending money for their big day, and they want it to be a certain way. And if you have your, like you said, as you have your, whether it's your value system or your whatever the case may be, you can't do it for physical reasons or whatever. Right. Just show the respect that the couple deserve. I think that's what people miss out on, is that we forget we are all human, but we all need to respect each other.
Sure. Yeah. And listen, it's challenging, right? Because in theory, you get married, you get one shot, you get married big.
All right. We'll go with that.
Like one big thing, supposedly, right? Or two, or maybe a starter one and a smaller one later, right? But
we'll go with that. Yeah.
This is not I'll just do it again on Friday. I'm good. Like, I really think people are kind of entitled, and I think that a lot of family members are very entitled. Oh, well, that's my sister's, son, and I should be able to go to his wedding. Well, this is their event, and if this is what they've decided, you really don't. No, you don't have an opinion here. Yes, it matters, but not really. And so I really, when I do premarital counseling, I really say to the couple, sit and discuss what are the values of the wedding walking in. Some people really care about the ceremony. Some people really care about the reception. Some people really care about the first dance. There's things, right, that couples really, really, really care about. And if your main goal, I want to make sure this one can come, and they're not vaccinated because they're too old or they can't get back, I need to protect them, then you can build a wedding around that value, right?
Exactly.
Or if the reception is so important, then you build around, this is my number one. I'm going to build, if you want your invitation to be, to me, the invitation's this is like the entryway, right? This is how you announce to everybody what the tone is. Right. And so a lot of people put a lot of stock in the invitation. Awesome. It sets the tone. Absolutely. Some people put stock into, I want an open bar. I want everyone to have fun. You're going to build around that. So when couples walk into a wedding post-COVID, right? Without really understanding, so how are we going to account for that? To me, it's kind of like a little bit of a recipe for disaster.
So how do you help people with, that have this anxiety, that trauma on them? Because we all lived through it, 3 years, the last 3 years have not been great, right? So how do you, what are some exercises or things that people can do to help alleviate some of this anxiety that comes with these specific choices.
Okay.
Meaning COVID.
So I've been talking a lot about something that I'm calling intentional communication. Okay.
Yes.
Communication is communication, but there is such a thing as intentional communication. So think of this so I think about it in terms of an emotional landscape. But think about landscaping in general, right? I like to bring clinical concepts to real life things, right? So when you landscape, you think, where does a tree go? I want shade here. I want to put a tree here. Well, the sun, this is going east. The sun is going to hit at this. The shade's going to go. All things I'm assuming a landscape architect knows how to manage, and where do I put the shrubs and what zone I used to garden, so I like to use stuff about trees. So for your information, we're in zone 10. Okay, from a gardening, which means everything dies, and if it's not green, it's gonna die, right? Exactly, right. So from that perspective, I want my environment, I want my emotional landscape to thrive. So what do I have to do to make that emotional landscape thrive? So I think of it like that. I'm gonna have intentional communication with my partner and my partner's family and my family. So create a box. And I would say put 20, 25 people in that box. And this is your crew. This is your close friends, your childhood friend, your grandmother, godmother, parents. This is that crew of people. Like, these are the people that need to be here. And then talk to your partner about, so this is the core people that really, like, it would hurt me if they were sick or if they weren't here. How do we keep them protected? And the answer may be, well, we don't have to, because they've all had it and they all have antibodies and they're vaccinated. So they're essentially 100% immune if you have both of those things, right?
Right.
So if you have that, okay, great. So then there's your answer. If the answer is none of these people are vaccinated, then the question becomes, so these people matter. Our values are these people. And these people encapsulate my wedding. When I look at those pictures, when I look at that invitation years later, I want to make sure that I have positive feelings associated with, even when something, something always goes wrong. Something goes like a little, right?
Always.
Like a
little
perfect weddings don't exist.
Exactly. Exactly. But hopefully they're so tiny because you've indicated to your planner, this matters to me. At all costs, this needs to matter to me. So if that's health, listen, I had a bride who had a couple that was supposed to get married 2020, supposed to get married 2021, eventually got married in 2022. And the wedding they had scheduled for 2020, 2021, and the one they had were total opposites. But the wedding they had, they wanted his grandmother, who was like, I'm not even like 102. She was like, she was like up there. And so they structured that wedding and they went as far as they rented this humongous house in Central Florida. Like, I'm talking 20-room house.
Right.
And they put 20 people on their box of, these are the core people. Her parents, his parents, they all PCR'd. They all stayed 24 hours in the house, masked, PCR'd again. They were all negative. The pictures were breathtaking because they had invited 200 and something people in 2020.
Wow.
But they had such a cute wedding because they looked at it saying everyone was able to let their guard down and have fun. Like, you didn't have to worry, like, oh, is this person safe? So again, if their values are this lady that's 102 matters to me, great. If you want a huge wedding and you're like, I want a big shindig, then that's your value. And then that informs the kind of wedding that you're going to have, right?
I mean, but how much guilt should we be putting on ourselves, if any, when we are communicating everything? You know, we say, look, we're inviting everybody to the Pelican Grand. We're going to do our ceremony at the top floor. It's open air. We ask that you be vaccinated, but that's a personal choice. And then we find out weeks later, let's say 30 people at our wedding turn positive. How much of that should we, as people that tried to do everything possible, do we need to take on that guilt?
So you just said a rooftop wedding, right?
Rooftop wedding out in the open air. Yeah.
Okay, Keith, what if, not to be graphic, but I'm trying to kind of make a point with this comment. Yeah. What if someone jumps off that's a rooftop. What if someone jumps off? Is that your fault?
No.
So what's the difference?
Thank you. All right. So you basically you got to the answer that I wanted you to
Right?
get.
Yeah.
You know, and I tell people all the time, I'm like, look, you can plan your wedding. Your wedding is your wedding. And as long as you give people options to attend and
Sure.
say, look, we're not sure everybody's going to be tested. We're not sure that everybody's going to be vaccinated. We would love for you to be there, but like everything else, it's your choice on whether or not to come.
Yeah. And listen, again, if it's the bride and the groom's event and I want to attend, my opinion is 0. Listen, I turned 46 in July. I'm still like mourning this fact. Okay. I'm 46 in July.
Wait till you hit 50, baby.
Listen, I still have a while to go, but you know, I had it, you know, I've been very open that my parents live with us and I have small kids. So I've been, and plus with my work at Nicholas, I already exposed myself to the ICU. So I'm have to be very careful. So my husband was like, let's do a small thing. Okay. Well, it had to be outdoors. So we ended up going to Topgolf, which I had never been there.
I love Topgolf. Have you been there? Oh my God, I love Topgolf.
I had never been, and I was like, this is like an adult's paradise.
And the next morning, you're like, what muscle?
Oh no! Well, no. At a certain, you know, like we're all in our mid to late 40s, so a lot of us were like, if I swing that, I'm just gonna be out of town.
Oh no,
right?
It's awful. We went bowling, and I could barely stand up.
Bowling is hard. Try ice skating or roller skating, and you
no.
Yeah, because
not with these bones.
Right. Yeah. So I did a thing, and I needed to, my main goal was I needed to stay safe. My husband had to stay safe. I invited a core group of, I think it started off as 14.
Right.
I knew they were all vaccinated. About over half of them had just had COVID this last month.
Right.
Okay. And I was very vocal. Please, if you have any symptoms the week of, or if you had an exposure, please let me know by Saturday morning. 4 people, 1 tested positive. The other 3 had an exposure, and they were very open. Tania, I don't want to attend. I don't want to get used to. And I said, I deeply sorry. I will miss you, but thank you for your honesty. Right. We went. I was okay with not being masked because, again, we were outdoors, and I trust my friends, and my friends had no problem with it. They loved me. They wanted to be at my event. That's simple. If someone gave me pushback, to me, it's a non-conversation. Like, I'm not willing to engage in that argument. And I think to some degree, if you're having an event, you need to decide how much of a conversation this is actually going to be.
And that comes up a lot, actually, is that, you know, people try to guilt the person that is inviting them.
Yeah.
Whether or not they are even invited. I mean, I talk to clients all the time and couples all the time. I'm like, look, invite only the people that you think are going to still be in your life a year from now.
Yeah.
You know, do you want to, right? Do you want to still go to dinner and have a conversation with them?
Yeah.
One-on-one, or do you like, you know, they're our neighbors. We live in an apartment. We're thinking of moving.
Right. I will tell you what we were talking, the 3 of us offline before we jumped on, about what are some of the lessons I think that people learned during COVID. And I actually want to go as far, Keith, is saying, I think people saw anything can happen. Anything can happen, and my parents won't be here. I may not be here. Like, yes, I'm vaccinated. Yes, I'm protected. But God forbid something like that. I'm going to have a wedding that I want to have. I'm going to invite the people I want to. So I think, I mean, yeah, there's always an obligation list. There's like a short list of people. But I kind of feel like people have been bumped out of the, oh, well, I have to invite all these 70 people because they're part of my mom's prayer group, and God forbid I invite them.
Yes.
Like, are you at that prayer group? Like, do you want to invite those? Because you're paying for those 70 people. So like, really, I tell couples, again, when I do premarital counseling, really soul search about what is the value that this entire wedding is built on.
Right.
And then build around that.
Right.
I always say to people, you know, there are no absolutes in life. And if you realize that you don't know who's going to be here tomorrow and who is going to be here tomorrow and what's going to happen to somebody. So who do you really want to have in your, you know, who do you want to be looking back down the road and seeing their face of, you know, at your wedding?
Yeah. Yeah. I've been married 22 years now. I had quick math in my head, but I remember when we had our ring bearer, who was a dear friend of mine at the time. She was kind of like a semi-supervisor. I was doing internship, and her oldest son, who's now, I believe, just graduated college, obviously. And he was like 3 years old, like 3.5. And she literally said to me, if this is an important moment, this little boy running up, walking with he's 3, Tania. Like, and I had no clue. I was like 23 years old. I'm like, it'll be fine. And it wasn't a central tenet. And he walked, but he kind of walked with the pillow kind of like hanging, and kids, right? And he kind of like ran halfway, and she had to escort him the other way. And it's cute. It was funny, and it didn't faze me. But she warned me, if this is important to you, get another kid that's going to like walk, an older kid that's going to walk a straight line. It's always funny to me. And maybe you guys have thoughts on this. What is important to people in a wedding? Like, I would think it's the ceremony and stuff like that, but what things are important to them. And to some people, health and the welfare, physical safety of other people is paramount. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. And if that's the case, then Keith, the same way that you plan, again, we were talking about for hurricanes, if you get married in March, I'm assuming you got to plan for rain if you're outdoors. Right. To me, it's the same conversation as that.
Yeah.
But, are there practices that a couple can kind of put into place to help safeguard some of the issues that tend to come up between conversations between the couple and the parents, the couple and people that are important to them? And not just about COVID, just about life in general, just about the wedding. A couple really wants to plan their event. It's theirs. They're the ones getting married. So they really want it to be their dream, not their parents' dream. And that's a real change from like 30 years ago, because it used to be the parents did everything. They planned everything, and the couple just showed up. Now the couple's like, no, I want a mojito bar.
In most cases.
In most cases, yeah.
In most
Do you know what I mean? Are there ways to have an open discussion with your family members that is open and honest and is felt the right way? I mean, are there any small tools that people out there can use?
Yeah. So remember what I just said a few minutes ago about values?
Yeah.
This is the central tenet that I kind of want people to leave this podcast with, right? About you need to decide what are the values that are inherent in what you're doing. So if I'm the mother of the bride, for example, and I really, really want myself and my own mother to be central in the ceremony, then the bride and the groom need to say, okay, mom, dad, mother-in-law, father-in-law, sister, whoever's in the box. Remember, there's like a group of people that's like, this is our core group.
Right.
What are the things that you would like? Like, if you had your way, what are your must-haves? And I think when you engage in that conversation, you gauge people like, my grandmother died when I was 5, and I really, really want her name or a statue of somebody here or a picture of her. Some people leave 2 seats alone, and they put flowers on the seat to mark the people that have passed away. There's like a whole bunch of things that you can do to mark certain occasions. And then the bride and the groom need to kind of take that in. Okay, my mom didn't have a wedding and she wants to have a huge wedding. And my mother-in-law also didn't want to, didn't have a wedding because they were too young, didn't have money, and they want to have a big one. We want to elope in Vegas, and we want to just do something small like that. Okay, well, these are opposites, like totally opposites.
All right. Yeah.
But there has to be a shared common value. You don't have to have a ginormous wedding, nor do you have to go to Vegas, although high five.
I'm just saying, Ben and Jen just did that. They had the Vegas wedding and then they had the big wedding. So if you have enough money.
So the other thing that I tell people, Marcy, that I've also seen is I also have had people send maybe a smaller invitation, like physically smaller invitation, like a personal, there's only 10. And like it says that you're one of 10 people, do not post on social, like there's rules, right? And it's like, this will be held at this small event. We will text you details the day before. Like I've had someone do that. And then the large wedding, right?
The big one, right? For everybody.
Come to the church on Saturday and everyone come here. So I do think that you kind of need to decide what works for you. I think the conversation of the good old fashioned traditional wedding, and that's the only thing we're going to do in the big church and I don't know that that's the only option right now. Like there's other ways that you can get married, right? It doesn't have to be the traditional way. I think couples need to talk about what's in their value system, right? That works, right?
Yes. I mean, I think that I just feel like when I'm finding out from a client what their visioning, what their vision of their expectations are, I think that's a key moment for me, because I have to play into who is the ultimate decision maker here.
Right.
Sometimes they say it's this person, and it turns out it really isn't that person.
Sure.
So you have to look at the dynamics, what their body language is, what they're speaking, what they're saying, and then you have to find out if there's any non-negotiables too that they have to have.
Well, let me even tell you something like this. And so my family's from Central America, specifically Honduras. And in Honduras, when you get invited to a certain level of wedding, you don't send an invitation. The couple hand deliver, knocks on the door, not text, not e-bite, no, like they hand deliver the paper, and they sit and have coffee or a meal. It's not like, hey, here you go. But
no,
they
really?
Sit, yup. Now let's think this through. 100 and something people.
That's a lot of dinners.
That's a lot of coffee, man. That is a lot of coffee.
At a certain social level, you sit, and I'm talking about with like the older families, like, out of respect for my best friend's grandmother, I come and and invitations in Honduras this is the very important thing. Right. Like, again, like this invitation sets the tone. A lot of times they're boxed. It's not just a piece of paper that's being handed. It comes in a box that's unwrapped in front of, like, it's an entire, that sets the tone for everybody. So a lot of times what you think matters to one person. So someone coming in and marrying in Honduras with, oh my God, I'm not going to have 125 days. Yes, you are. Yeah, you are.
Yes, I just had a text the other day from one of my clients, that she was meeting her brother. This was the mother of the bride, and they were meeting with the brother, the mother's brother, and they were giving them their invitation that day. Yeah. So she had a question, and it was just funny because I'm like, this reminds me of like my grandmother's era, where they didn't rely on the post office per se. They, they really did hand deliver.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. And I think it's lovely. I mean, I think it's a lovely touch. It's just, can you imagine if we did that here? Can you imagine if we went around hand delivering all these things?
No. And talking about setting a tone. Hello, Brooke.
Hi, Brooke.
What's up, Doc?
Hi, Brooke. What's up, Doc?
She's been waiting to say that all day. What's up, Doc? Oh my God.
All day.
But especially in this day and age, I mean, we've all learned how to kind of stand up for ourselves, but there are still brides and couples out there, especially let's talk about same-sex couples that want to get married. There are a lot of issues that can come up with their family. Maybe they only came out like a year ago. Maybe they've never come out, and now they're getting an invitation to a wedding. I mean, how much do you actually tell a couple to pay attention to what their family's going to say, their in-laws are going to say, their friends are going to say? I mean, the friends are going to be supportive, but I mean, how
are they though?
That depends. But if you're a same-sex couple, you want to invite your parents. I mean, this just happened. It's that they wanted to invite both their parents, but only the mother was going to come.
Oh my!
I know, and it created a lot of stress and strife in that situation for this particular couple.
There's nothing like a good old-fashioned wedding to bring out them family dynamics, like
right. Oh my God. I mean, here is a moment of true joy, celebration, all the things in life that count, and yet you have all of these internal issues that were like, not my son, he's not gay.
Yeah. So remember what I just said about intentional communication. So again, this is the takeaway. So the couple needs to sit and needs to really, in this case, Keith, have a conversation of who are the 5 instead of the 5 key people. I cannot get married without my mother, my grandmother, like these are the people. Oh, okay, wait. Out of those 5 people, your dad's not going to come. Okay, well then this is person number 4 that we need to figure out. Right. So the others are going to come. Whether or not they're happy about it you're still going to have your event. How other people respond to your event is not your purview, and you can't control that. Okay. So if your dad is the concern, then that person needs to have a direct conversation with that dad and basically pose the following question. So I'm going to get married. This is going to happen. Right. This is not a question. This is not a can I am an adult. This is the life I've chosen. You can either choose to attend or not attend. If you don't, I will be very sad. I will be very hurt. Always, right? You always state how you feel, but then you walk away, and that person needs to deal with that. That's not on you. It's not in your purview. It's just it's past our pay grade.
Doubles at that point for a no show. No call, no show. Extra zeros.
And if they don't show up, Keith, that's super sad. But if we wait around for everyone to confirm our happiness, none of us would do anything ever.
And I think that's
sit there and wipe my tears with $100 bills. I've done it. I mean,
you could do that too. You could
but you know what? I think that I love that point that, you know, we don't need to be, we don't need to have our happiness relied on other people being happy with us.
Yeah. There's a difference between the want and the need. Right.
But it doesn't. Expression
do you need them there or do you want them there?
Yeah, I mean,
maybe there's that combo of both, but you know.
So Keith, I actually just had this happen. Well, not just, but this was pre-COVID. They must have gotten married 2018, 2019, and it was two women. They had been together for like over 10 years. Like they were out to their entire family at this
in other words, not a one-night stand.
Not, like 10 years. Like they were just like legalizing.
Didn't meet you last night, put the hitch, hitch on my truck.
They had grown up, they were childhood friends, they had grown up together. They were in a solid relationship-owned house. Like this was happening. And one of the women's grandmother is super old school. And as long as it's not in my face, I'm fine with it. Like one of these kind of like, if I don't see it, I'm like, I'll accept it as long as it's over there.
Right.
And I said to her, I go, she was one of her 5. I need my abuela. I cannot get married without my abuela. I understand.
Abuela.
I get it. I go, okay. So your abuela's not going to she's not going to magically change, but your abuela loves you. And that was a true fact. So I go, you need to walk up to your abuela and hand her the invitation and say, I love you. I do not want to get married without you, but this is the life I have chosen. And I will be very sad if you won't be there. I really want you there. That old lady was almost a no-show. I mean, literally the hour before, she rolled up 30 minutes before the event was to start.
Drama queen.
She sat in the corner, didn't say a word, but she was there.
Pulling the badge the last minute.
She was there. She showed up. Ceremony, because to the grandmother, the ceremony is what mattered. Stayed for the ceremony, was not there a reception, and my patient was fine. She was like, she saw me. That's all again, you need to speak with your partner about does she need to be there the entire time? Does she need to walk up and say, I accept? Like, what are you looking for at that point, right? Mm-hmm. So for her, that was enough.
Because that's where where do you, so if you have that job, right? Because you have that job. Someone has that job.
Yeah.
Where's the balance in the mathematics with the want and need at that point? Like,
where's the mathematics?
Where's the where's the sense of obligation that, like, hi, let's go.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna, or kicking your rifles. I've seen it all. Whatever.
How do you phrase that question? If you're somebody that has that relationship in your family, and that that you're going to have this hard conversation with an abuela, an aunt, an uncle, or a father, right? How do you set that situation up to make it the best possible scenario to create both privacy and respect?
So your question is predicated on how do I control the uncontrollables?
Correct.
We cannot control because they're uncontrollables. I can certainly control what I and my partner have agreed is important for us.
Right.
And then we can make the ask. She made the ask of the abuela. The abuela didn't have to go. The abuelo didn't go, by the way. He said no from the get, and he stayed true. But her thing was the grandmother's really the one that raised her and really wanted to be there. And all she wanted, I asked her, what do you want from this? Are you looking for her to come up to you and embrace you? And she goes, I just want her to see me in my wedding dress. I just want her to see in my dress. I don't want a picture. I just want her to see. And she did. She did just that.
I think my question was more like, you're not going to ask your dad to come to your gay wedding in the midst of him having his, cocktail party at the bar with his buds, right? You're not going to go and ask him that question there and that situation.
Sure.
And so that's really where my question, where I was going with this. It's like, what kind of scenario?
Relationships that already when you go, that's obviously
like
completely the wrong time.
You're talking about who's present, where is the location you're having the meeting,
what's the most respectful way for somebody to ask that question?
Okay. I like to believe that people don't like to be put on the spot. Yeah. And people don't like to feel like they have an audience. So like, let me tell someone something that may upset them. Oh, and don't worry about the 50 people that are paying attention to how you're going to respond. So your family, your dad, your abuela. So I would encourage people to use their better judgment. I would probably think I need to respect this person that matters to me in my life and how they're going to receive the information best. Likely that's going to be in private. Likely that's going to be on their turf. So at their house, in their home, not with the audience of other people.
I always tell people tequila and one more.
I mean, you could, but I tell people to bring an ally, right? So if your dad is, if your dad's giving you a hard time, but your mom tends to be the one that softens up your dad and your mom wants to support you, bring your mom, bring the aunt, if you feel like you need the support, and the support would be key for the dad or for the abuela, then bring them too. Some people don't want any of that. They're just like, I'm going to deal with this. I'm a fan of either deal with this now, but it'll wait for you. And when it waits for you on the other side, you're just going to have to deal with a bigger version of that. And weddings are dealing with family dynamics that have just been allowed to kind of create themselves.
So is it better to ask the question or not? Because there are some people that say, you know what, I just let things lie as they are, right? We don't want to create turmoil. I still want to be able to go on Thanksgiving and visit my family, but yet they're still hiding a piece of themselves. Always.
Yeah.
So
but this also sorry.
No, go ahead, Marcy.
No, I was going to say that, I think that it also goes beyond whether it's same-sex couples or if it's race or if it's religion. I've actually I had an event where the bride and the groom were getting married by a rabbi and a preacher. And the bride did not tell the father of her, her father that, and I think I mentioned this on the show once before, but she did not tell the father that there was going to be a rabbi there. And he was a Southern boy who was not very into certain things, and you're
so polite,
he so polite, right?
Pitched a fit. I mean,
he was such an ass.
He was, and I mean, to the point that it was the screaming, the verbal and the physical fighting that was going on in the parking lot. Right. And I didn't know, I wasn't privy to this beforehand because it wasn't a full head-on event planning event. It was, I was the caterer at that point. And, I had to step in and I had to say, you need to go and talk to your father and you need to chill this out before your guests start arriving.
In other words, stop being such a kid. Get your ass as an adult.
But hold on, Marcy, remember what I said about either deal with this now or later, but you're going to have to
deal later.
But listen, that's what we chose to do.
Exactly.
That is ludicrous. If I know that my dad is that strict, why the hell would I want to make it hard on myself? That's my way.
I was just going to go there.
Why?
You know why? Kind of a sense of this person. However, there is that element of surprise where you think that they're going to go apeshit crazy. And then they look at you like, well, we've known since you were 4. Right. Type of situation. And then also there's the one where like, and then that's not going to happen. And then like you see the pistol loaded. You know what I mean? So surprise,
Yeah. But listen, I can even
deal with things later.
When do you wait for that to happen? Like 5 minutes before you walk down? Like,
that's crazy. But listen, I can even attach this back to COVID, Keith, what we were saying. So let's say that, let's say that I'm being super cautious and I'm being super safe and I'm invited to a wedding of someone that's a dear friend, like super close to my heart. I want to celebrate them, but I know for a fact that she's a nurse that works in an ICU and every single member of that wedding party, they're all nurses, they're all doctors, they're all potentially exposed. Okay. I need to decide, do I want to deal with going and potentially being exposed, what does that say about me? What do I have to do to keep myself safe? Or do I just want to go and wing it and say, oh, well, maybe I'm going to get upset when I get there. Like, this is, if that's that person's event, like, don't make it hard on yourself. Like, hey, dad, heads up. My husband and I, my fiance and I, this is what we're doing. You have a hard time with that? Again, are you part of the core group of people? If you are, I'm assuming, Marcy, obviously, the dad was a part of the core group of people. And when you have intergenerational couples, couples that share, that have a difference in religion, different in ethnicities, difference in race, these are intentional like, you can't get away with not having it.
All you have to do is hire Marcy, have her send out the invitation, and then see what the RSVP looks like.
Yeah, I know.
You could do that.
Done. Easy. You don't
But
have
you
to
know,
have Marcy do it.
I mean,
the
these
invitation and see what happens.
But these interpersonal relationships are the most troubling when it comes to our personal lives. I mean, how our mother is going to respond, how our brothers are going to respond, how our uncles are going to respond.
As hurtful as that could be, do you really want that aunt or that one day in your life? Like, do you want that? I don't.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like a lot of people put a lot of hopes and dreams on the idea that we're going to have this conversation and the person's going to cry and be like, I've known since you were 2. I love you.
Don't wait. Get it over with.
Right?
If you pull the Band-Aid off, you're going to be so much better off for it.
If you're going to get bad news, take time to heal, get over it.
But it's not always like that.
Focus on, okay, this isn't happening. I'm real good at math, right? So -1. Plus, here's the party, though, and let's focus on, it's easier to do it, obviously.
But guys, I mean, that's the thing.
Don't wait till last minute. Get it done. Deal with it the best you can, and then hopefully you have a good friend or someone in your ear.
Brooke.
This is the best. Focus on this part.
Yeah.
So, Brooke, I mean, this is what I'm saying is that everybody has that idea of the movie response in their head. It's like, I've waited, I've been dramatic, I'm waiting until this moment to tell them that I'm gay or that I'm married somebody interracial or outside of my religion, and I just want acceptance. And I think that's where I'm going with this questioning is, when do you finally get to a point as an individual that the acceptance comes from within?
Yes.
And not from outside? Right? When do we become in love with ourselves enough to be okay? I'm happy because I am who I am.
So what you're asking is how many times should I hit my head up against the wall and expect a different response?
Yes. Bam, bam, bam.
I mean, again, either we invite, again, to me, weddings are celebrations of love and union. Just because your love doesn't look like my love does not make it wrong. It's just not mine, and I'm happy to celebrate you. Period. End of story. So you need to decide who you want to be there. Again, if you're being COVID cautious, awesome. Decide who are the people that have shared goals with you. If they don't have shared goals, they don't have to be invited. It's okay to not be invited to a wedding. It's okay to not be invited to someone's wedding. People have reasons for that. And so when people look at planning the same way that people plan for hurricanes or someone being sick or going down or snow or whatever else people have to account for, flights being delayed. Keith, I'm sure when you've had weddings outside of the city and people have to travel.
Do not even talk to me about that.
I mean, right? But you can't control flights. And American Airlines doesn't care that you're missing your wedding. They don't care. They don't.
They don't.
I mean, you can try. I've seen women at the airport with wedding dresses and like on a delay and like in full tears. And that's horrible. But these are things that are out of our purview. So again, when I speak to couples, I say, okay, look at what are the things that are 100% under your control and control as much as you possibly can. But there's going to be a list of things that you can't control and that you're just going to have to let it go, because then the anxiety will be pushed on top of the wedding planning that is already an anxious situation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I tell people, I'm like, love you for you. Don't love you through the eyes of your parents. Yeah. Don't love yourself through the eyes of your family. Love you through the eyes of the partner that you're about to marry, because they obviously want to marry you, so they love you. You are enough as you are. Wait,
I love it.
Hold that up a little longer. Do that one more time.
Keith, you mentioned something before and you hit it right on the head. And that is, you said you were talking about that there's no perfect wedding. However, Dr. Paredes said that you do what you can to control the situation. So as long as you're doing, like the person at the airport with her dress, she can get on that flight earlier in the week rather than waiting till the day before.
Exactly.
100%.
These are things that you can take steps to do and plan ahead, so that by the time that your wedding comes around, you don't have anything to stress about. Whatever's going to be is going to be, and you're going to enjoy it for every moment that you have.
Yeah.
Do what you can do ahead of time.
So, doctor, if people wanted to reach out to you and talk to you, how do they do that?
So, it is 2022. So I will say social media is a way to get a hold of people. So at @4th_trimester is my Instagram. I was very dormant on Instagram for the last year and a half because I've been so nuts with work, but I'm starting to post a little bit more. And I had started these, Keith, at the beginning of the pandemic, all of these little things. Look how many I've acquired. I've acquired a lot of them. I've acquired a lot of them. And so there's just...
Those look like my pounds I've acquired.
I have a lot. Like, look, this is a good one also, Keith. Look.
Remind yourself who you are. Treat that person with respect. Love it.
Yeah. And so that, to the theme of, if this event is my event and I want to be able to look at it with love and peaceful eyes, then you need to have intentional communication about what those values are, because it kind of sets the tone, and even sets the tone on your marriage, on your wedding, on whether or not you're going to expand your family, travel, what kind of work you do, how you work. These are all things that matter. If you don't talk about your values, you're kind of walking into something blind.
And so, like, if you've got that extra piece of steak or that one spot, call me. I'm a great time.
She's like, bring me the leftovers, baby. Bring me the leftovers. No, and I think that's true, guys. If you're listening to this podcast, it's really important that you love you for who you are, and that if you're gonna get
ready today.
Right, you do. You look amazing today. Just like, look, Brooke loves herself a lot.
Keith, I did tell you this, that I always feel like upstaged by these lovely people that you have here. I always try and come prepared a little bit. Yeah.
Oh my God, that's funny.
At 2:12 this started. Trust me. It's
what, 2:12? Oh, today? Oh my God. Look, see what she can do in like 10 minutes. Isn't that crazy?
Pretty good.
She's crazy.
See,
all right.
We were just talking about it. I knew I wasn't gonna have time for lashes, so look what I did. Extra.
Very smart. Very smart.
Oh my God, everybody.
I'm not gonna be the bride on the plane on the dress because of my shit. I'm just like,
nope. All right, everybody. Thank you for tuning in again to Behind the Veil. We loved having you, Dr. Tania Paredes. Obviously, my co-host, Marcy Gutenberg, with An Affair to Remember by Marcy, and the gorgeous Brooke Logan Stoner. I'm your host, Keith Willard. We will see you next Tuesday at 2 o'clock. And for now, say goodbye.
Bye, guys.